So what we have here is a 2023 KTM 300 XCW that is a permanent snow bike via the Timbersled ride on the back, and it's done blown up. It's actually blown up twice in its life, and this guy that owns it, I don't even know if he's rode it much this winter. The last time it went 6K and it cold seized, unfortunately. He had brought it to me with an electrical issue. He said it had no spark. It had been to a couple other shops. They had changed a lot of parts. Couldn't get this thing to spark. Diving through the wiring harness, I've made a giant mess of it, only to come to find out that it was low compression only in the crankcase, which the crankcase sensor doesn't pick it up. Ipso facto, not giving it spark. So we're going to take this 300 and make it a 500. BRC500 kit going in this bad boy. We're going to build a wicked snow bike for this customer and get him at least 1 or 2 more rides this winter. Right here, a giant chunk of the Nicosil coating. I don't know if KTM calls it Nicosil, but their coating is gone there. She's all scuffed there. The top end, like where you actually measure the compression from the ports up, is actually okay, and it actually made decent compression with some oil in the cylinder from it trying to have been started for like 2 months. So I got a pretty high compression reading, but the problem was the crankcase wasn't getting any, and the crankcase pressure sensor doesn't like that. Here we have the piston. This is not a snow bike piston. Do not put forged Wiseco piston. Don't put any forged piston in a 2-stroke snow bike. They are thick, they're kind of heavy, and they expand at a different rate than a cast piston, and they do this a lot. So it was probably shut down for 10 minutes. They fired it up and pinned it, and 4-corner cold seized it. 1, 2, 3. This corner kind of actually survived, but needless to say, she got squeaked. But we can also see how hot it's running. There is no wash on the top of this piston. This is all burnt oil to the top, and we can see some burnt in the bottom. It's a little hard to see, but that black down in there, that is burnt to the bottom of the piston. That indicates she was running too hot. For a prime example of a better piston, this just came out of a 100-hour YZ250, and we can see these little clean spots. This is called wash. This is what you want to see. This is where the fuel and air is coming out of the transfer ports. That's why it's a little cleaner in a couple spots. And then we have some carbon on top. It could run a little cooler, but this is running great. We see no burnt oil to the bottom of the piston. We have a nice clean piston on the bottom, and in contrast, we can see all this black right in the center. So it was definitely running hot. You can do this in 2 minutes of running a 2-stroke. You can have this issue. 100 hours, I don't know, 30 minutes, and toast at the top end. Unfortunately for him, you can't buy a new cylinder from KTM. They're back ordered till the summer. We could have this one replated, but that usually takes 10 to 14 days, even here in town. So he's probably going to miss a season. We're now talking early April, late March time to get it back together and stuff. So BRC has an engine kit in stock. We're going to tear into this bike. They're going to give me a call when it's ready to get picked up. We'll go down and get the engine kit and hopefully have this thing running by late in the week. First step, we got to get that engine out of that bike, which is pretty easy at this point, other than it's got a kit on it. What you going to do? We're ready to lift this guy out. Motor mounts, swing arm pivot bolt is out. It's pretty easy without a cylinder on it. I think I have all the wiring unhooked. Hopefully she will come out of here. The 500 I know is not going to go in as easy. However, that'll be a problem for future me. There we go. Boom, 1-300. Out. Nope. Bottom end sitting here on the bench. I think we'll go through and clean up the bike frame now. I gotta pull the oil tank and everything out because this bike's gonna run straight premix. Let me tie up maybe some of the wiring that got cut open in the wiring harness debacle. So let's just leave this guy on the bench for now. This bike was originally equipped with oil injection, being a TPI two-stroke. They injected it right into the throttle body. It's an okay system for average riding, but it's a terrible system for like high RPM extreme abuse to the engine. You just don't get enough oil. So this owner has already switched it to premix, but he's left the tank in because it's kind of a nightmare to get out with the engine in there. And now that the engine out is the perfect time to gut this oil tank, save some weight, and clean up the bike a little bit. So with the oil tank out, the wiring harness kind of cleaned up, and the engine out, that's about all we can do until we get this 500cc BRC engine kit. So for now, let's have a look at a few other small things. I want to check out what temperature the thermostat is. Now we all know two-strokes like to run cold, much like my garage. That's why I've got this super janky sweater on, because it is not that warm in here today. But we don't want our two-stroke to run so cold that it's not fun to ride. I will give up a little bit of horsepower to have my bike run a little warmer and not have inconsistent engine temps, not have cold seizure problems, just a more consistent bike. By a lot, I prefer a 70-degree thermostat. You could even go warmer. The power loss is so minimal and just a reliable, more fun day. Get this dang clip out of here. Just makes for a better day. Your grips will stay hotter. Your bike stays hotter when you shut down and take a break. Less time to warm it up each time you go ride. So, let's see what we got in this guy. We got hopefully a 70, so I don't have to order one. Woo! We got an 80. Well, that'll probably do. I'll just leave the 80 in there. not going to show a lot of the bottom end. It's very straightforward, just like doing any other dirt bike engine. Cases in the oven, bearings in the freezer. Okay, transmission is in and seems to be shifting as good as it can get, obviously, until we can check it with the cases together. We got our little nylon sleeve that KTM uses to hold the shift drum. Oop, stay on there. We got our dowel pins in. We dropped our crank in. We've got all the seals in this guy. I'm just going to give this surface a little wipe down with some brake clean. Just from sitting on the bench, you get the odd little drop of oil or something. We don't need any center case gaskets leaking. And we are ready to drop her together. We got all our bearings, crank bearings, transmission bearings, countershaft bearing, or counterbalancer bearing, shift shaft bearing. I believe we're good to go. Whew, big dog, going together. The nice thing about KTMs is, man, they go together easy for the most part. I shouldn't jinx myself. It won't go together now. Too far down on my crank and not far enough down on my transmission here. Just probably this dang shift drum. So I've got this plastic bushing installed. Note to self, if I do a bunch more of these, I'm going to build a tool because that was kind of a pain. However, she's in. So let's go ahead. Shift shafts are down, crank is good. Let's go ahead and drop this guy back down this time. See how she goes about it. Oh yeah, that's good. That's the good stuff. Boom. Little wiggling, little jiggling, but she's down. Nice, gasket's all where it needs to be. Okay, let's get some case bolts in her. Okay, feels pretty good to get this bottom end together. Probably have to kick you back on time lapse and get this motor cranked out. So this is pretty boring stuff. Take a second here because these two timing marks are super crucial and they can be a little bit hard to see. So the one on the primary drive here on the right, it's way easier to see in person. My camera didn't pick it up, but just pay attention to your counterbalance timing marks. You do need to grind this little tiny bit of the frame away for the exhaust flange clearance. So don't forget to do that. It's in the instructions before you get too far. Well, we've made some pretty good progress on the big dog Snowbike here. We got the engine in last night. We still got to put the covers, the side covers and stuff on, ignition system, clutch and whatnot. But that's easy to do now that it's in the bike, and it's kind of a little bit easier to put it in the frame without that stuff on there. It's a little bit easier because it's definitely a squeeze. We can see how tight the headstay is up there. And this is all just externals that need to go on. I do think I need I definitely need some more lights up in here. It's pretty dark back here, especially with now that that door is not white. And it actually kind of makes it hard to work, but you know, working in the space that we got. On this side we can see, so I can put the clutch stuff on. I'm really hoping those kickstart parts come in before I get to that, but I also want to get it running today, so it's kind of a crapshoot. Don't need the kickstart, but I'd like to do it all in one shot. Now, let's get back to work. This kick-ass battery right here is the Noco NLP5. It's a direct fit for the TBI bike. That's what I'm choosing to power this BRC500. 250 cranking amps. Got a 5-year warranty. It's just the best battery. Available on the website, link down below. And here she is, all completed. We're waiting on TSP to get the proper tune for this thing flashed in, and we'll get Pro Mode unlocked on the ERM so we can do a little tuning on her. Load this thing in the truck, take her to the mountains, and get her dialed in for the customer. Just going for my first test ride here. The trail up was solid ice. It was painfully slow to get up on a snow bike, overheating, melting high facts, all that fun stuff. But an hour and a half later, we got up the trail. Gonna give the bike a good test trip here. We did this like 5 or 6 times through the day. Actually, I think 6 times, and I'm not gonna show it all because it drags on. We just end up doing it over and over again. But the bike's got a pretty good mid-range bob lean on the top end. But I'll show you the spark plug here in a second. Here. Ooh, she's a little lean on the top end, that's for sure. It's got some brown in there though, so I like that. It's not terrible. Okay, might need a little more fuel, which I Very thankful for companies like TSP out of Australia that build this little ERM module that allows us to adjust the fueling and ignition in our stock KTM ECMs. I'm able to pull a little fuel out of the mid-range, put a little more in the top end, and get this bike just running great for the customer. Now, I went over and over. We did this 6 times throughout the day, different areas, different loads, different conditions, and it's just a lot of riding in circles, which I'm not going to show you. But when I'm done with the bike, the customer gets a great running BRC500 or a 300 if you have that, and he can just go out with buddies. He doesn't got to worry about screwing with his fueling, because no one's going to do that when you're out for a ride day. You just ride. Let me take the bike, I'll get her dialed in, then you go have fun. I could have a little fun too. All right, guys, here we are. We're out here in Fernie, BC. This is the wrap up. We just flashed her. I think we got her pretty freaking wicked on the tuning. Back to my dash. Little burble at like 6,000. Changed the fuel a little bit. Here she is, finished product. 2023 KTM BRC500 XCW compared to a Riot 3 Pro something or other. Yeah, she's got the Q drive. This thing is an absolute ripper. See, she all fit in here just wicked awesome. My chain's a little loose yet. Please mention that in the comments, guys. Like and subscribe, helps me out a ton, really appreciate it. We'll fire it up one last time for you guys. That decomp button.